Hi, happy Wednesday. Thanks for jumping on today for vectorizing, on-screen digitizing, and more. We are excited to have y'all here. As always, please send over your questions through the questions tab if you have any of those while we're going through the presentation. And just know that we are recording all of these webinars and we'll be sending those links back out to you all so that you can refer back to them for reference and training opportunities if you've missed any of the past ones. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jeff Bassett and let him get started.
All right, thank you very much, Lauren. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining today, as always. We have a good topic for today, vectorizing, on-screen digitizing, and freehand drawing. And this is really how to handle bitmap images, raster images that come in to your shops as artwork. And those can be challenging in a variety of ways. So these are 3 tools that we have to be able to create a layout from these kinds of files. So that's the plan for today, and this is the basic agenda. Pretty simple agenda. I'll do a little bit of introduction on the topic and the types of files. We'll go through each of these 3 options, and then we'll go into the software. And I have 3 files that I want to work through and demonstrate each one of these options. So this topic sort of extends the previous topic that we had, which was the data import and cleanup that we did on April 15th. So this is sort of a corollary to that. It's kind of part 2 of that. That webinar was based on vector artwork, and this is of course based on bitmaps raster artwork. So this is the webinar series. These are the topics that we've already covered, and as Lauren mentioned, these are all saved and accessible. So if anyone's on this today for the first time and you want to go back and watch one of these, then I believe there'll be a follow-up email that has all the links, and you just sign up for it, and then you get access to the recording. So as it stands for now, this is the last of the series for now, and I think we'll pick this up again. I don't know, maybe in the fall with some new topics. But for now, today will be the last topic. So again, thanks everyone for being part of these. So as an introduction to the topic today, again, these 3 tools are ways to create layouts from raster/bitmap files, and I use those terms interchangeably. The actual file formats, JPEG, TIFF, PNG, PSD, a Photoshop file, but just the bitmap format of a Photoshop file. PDFs can be vector files, or they can be bitmap files, or they can be both in the same file. So sometimes people think, well, it's a PDF, therefore it's a vector file. Not necessarily. Right? You can scan a PDF, you can create a PDF from all kinds of different files. A little bit less common these days, BMP, GIFs, PCX, but these are all raster files. So these, some of these were from photographs. They could be a scan, they could be a sketch, they could be a photograph of a scan or a sketch, or a scan of a sketch, or et cetera, et cetera. So, and in some cases, these, these can really vary in quality, right? You can have, camera-ready artwork, something very clean, that looks like a vector file, right? And then you can go all the way to the other extreme, and I have some examples later on of, not very good quality artwork. So I think we're kind of like vector files, but even more so, we're sort of all over the map in terms of the kind of files that we see. I mentioned again, PDFs, both raster and vector. So, I think certainly when you have, let's say you have a retrofit and you're working from a photograph, it can be really difficult in some of these cases to create an accurate layout, you don't really have a clear dimension. You might have keystoning, meaning you're looking up at the sign and there's all these angles and perspectives. You might not have any reference for measurement of any kind. So it's certainly a challenge. And again, notwithstanding everything that I'll go through today, we always prefer a vector file, right? So in some cases, and I think I mentioned this in the other webinar, your customer very easily could have given you a vector file had they known the right format. Maybe even if it's a PDF, maybe they didn't realize that it's a bitmap PDF instead of the vector version of the PDF, for example. So you should always have the mindset of educating your customer. If you tell them what kind of file you need or explain the problem, they just assume could do it again or even have a vector file handy. So, and I wanted to add that this general topic was a focus for LED Wizard 8. We've known for a long time that this is an issue, that poor quality artwork abounds in this industry, so we need to be able to handle that. We need to be able to have tools that can still get you to the finish line on a layout. So that's a lot of what I'll show today. And I wanted to go back to this slide as I do with each of these webinars, just in the context of the topic. And I think that it's important to realize that Easy Layout Builder on the website does not handle custom artwork of any kind, right? Whether it's vector artwork or bitmap artwork, there's no importing of artwork there. So, we're in the LED Wizard 8 zone on these kinds of files, or bringing it into our layout team. Okay, so let's start with a few definitions, just to sort of explain what these three things are and how they're similar and how they're different. So vectorizing is actually a pretty old, not old, but a technology that has been around for a long time. Vectorizing was part of our early versions of SignWizard, 25 plus years ago. It's a pretty well-traveled path now, and it is the kind of feature technology that is also in other software that you probably have. Okay, so Illustrator does this, right? Flexi does this, SignLab does this, et cetera, et cetera. So it's and we do it too. And if you want to keep everything in LED Wizard, then this is an option, and I'll show you how this works. But the vectorizing, the automatic process of converting raster to vector is what we're talking about, and we support both black and white and color. Now, on-screen digitizing is a similar concept, except you do it manually. Okay, so you put the bitmap and then you trace it using arcs and lines, and I'll go through this. So you create a start point, you draw a line, you draw an arc, and you follow the path, and you do it visually, manually, instead of doing it automatically. And then freehand draw is, like the name implies, you're basically just drawing the path with the mouse. You can draw lines, but for the most part, it's just, you're an artist. You're just tracing over the artwork. And as you do that, as you draw that path, it converts it to Bezier curves. And by doing that, it smooths it out a little bit, right? It makes it a little bit more even. And so this is a new tool in LED Wizard 8, and it's a great way to handle some of these kinds of files. So in terms of the type of artwork where you would use these different features, vectorizing really wants good, clean artwork, right? It wants to have clean edges. You either want to have a clean edge of the edge of the artwork, or you want to have a clean edge between two colors. Sometimes this is referred to as camera-ready artwork. Could be a high-quality scan. As I say here, when to use. Sometimes artwork you think is a vector file, because it's so clean. And it turns out that it's not, that it's a bitmap. That's a good candidate for vectorizing. On-screen digitizing really can be anything else. It could be a photograph, a scan, or a sketch, but I tend to like it for lines, because we can cleanly draw lines, we can make sharp corners, we can use guidelines to make sure everything's straight and square. On-screen digitizing is more time consuming than either of the other options, but it's accurate in the sense that you get it right the first time, right? You draw it in there, and if you do a good job, it's a one-shot deal, and you have clean artwork. Freehand draw, really any kind of artwork. I think it works well with curves, and you're visually looking at this artwork, and you're saying, I know, either where I want the path of LEDs to go, or I know where the edge of this artwork is, and I just want to draw it. And that's freehand draw. It's certainly the fastest way. If you're drawing, say, a center path in a letter, you can be pretty quick about it. Okay, so those are kind of the three options, what they are and when to use them. In some cases, it's completely up to you as to which you think will work the best. Maybe you try vectorizing. Did I get good results? If I didn't, maybe I'll have to on-screen digitize it. Or maybe it's just something I just want to really quickly draw a path for my LEDs. And I should mention here that vectorizing is really creating an outline, right? So say you have a channel letter set, it's a retrofit, and you want to vectorize that outline. Vectorizing doesn't put a center path, right? On-screen digitizing or freehand draw would be where you would draw a center path. And you could, you can draw a center path on top of a bitmap without ever drawing the outline of the letter. And that's an option too. Or you could draw the outline of the letter and draw a center path. So the same tools could be used. You could on-screen digitize the outline, and you could freehand draw the center path for the LEDs, for example. So I think there are a lot of options here. Okay, so if there's no questions, let's just I'm gonna talk a little bit about on this slide images, and then we'll get into vectorizing. So just to be clear that when you import an image and you click on it with the layout tool in the window, then this property bar is displayed, and this is the property bar for a bitmap. Okay, so one of the things that you see here is what are called the pixel dimensions, so pixel height by pixel width. So this is 1,000 pixels high by 6,000 pixels wide, and that's a pretty decent, pretty decent sized image. It has a physical size, and it has a DPI. Okay, and these three things are all related, and it's probably beyond the scope of today to talk about these, but pixel width and pixel height and DPI and size, in LED Wizard you can scale a bitmap up and down, and that itself does not change the pixel dimensions. It just makes it bigger or smaller on the screen. And if you take an image and you scale it up, the DPI actually goes down, but the pixel dimensions stay the same unless you resample it, which is a different operation. So you'll see me scaling bitmaps up and down. And you can scale a bitmap up to actual size, in which case you might have a very low DPI, but in terms of visually seeing it on the screen, it'll be to the correct scale. And you'll see me do that on a couple of these. There are some additional options with bitmaps. This is not like Sign Wizard where you can do all kinds of crazy stuff to bitmaps, but here you can crop, you can rotate, resample. Again, from here you can vectorize the V. You can adjust transparency. So there are some things you can do. And then in the menu, there's the option of rasterize, and rasterize essentially is to take a vector image and create a raster image out of it. It's really the opposite of what we're talking about today, which is taking a raster image and creating a vector version from it. So we do have the concept of a data cleanup tool where you rasterize something and then you re-vectorize it, and that's in the data cleanup tool. So we can rotate, you can flip an image, and recently I did this on something I was working on. I flipped it because it was a double-sided cabinet that had the same design on both sides. I was able to flip it and create both sides, which was nice. Invert one-to-one zoom. So these are just some additional items in the image menu. But sometimes you can even import a design and not really be sure, if you're not paying attention, not really be sure, is it a vector object or is it a raster object? Is it a bitmap? If you click on it and the image property bar comes up, then it's an image. By the same token, if you toggle off the show colors icon, which is not on this screenshot, but you can turn colors on and off. And if you turn the colors off on a bitmap, then it disappears, and all you have left is a rectangle outline of where that image was. So that's one way to know what kind of a file that you have. Okay, so let's talk about vectorizing, and this is again the automatic process of really finding the edges of an image, an edge between colors, and creating a vector path from those edges. So the fact that we're looking for edges and you're putting, creating a vector means that, a photograph, a nature photograph, this kind of thing, that's not what vectorizing is about. It doesn't, it doesn't work most of the time on those kinds of photographs. So we're looking for artwork that's clean and that has clean edges. We do have a number of settings, and some of these are in this drop-down list here that says medium. There are other settings, and then there's a setting dialog box that lets you fine-tune even further a whole bunch of different parameters of vectorizing. And really, this is because there's such a wide range of quality of files that can be imported. So, I'll go through some of these options. I'm not going to talk about everything, but some of these things you can check or uncheck depending on the artwork. And then when you click on vectorize and it creates the vector version, we keep the original bitmap, and we make it. I guess the default here says 60% transparency, and that means that way you can compare. You can compare what it is. The vector result that you got with the original bitmap, and you can line those up and you can say, oh, that was, that was pretty good, or whoops, I rounded off this corner, or this path deviates, or something like that. So it kind of lets you sort of check and verify. So we'll look at this file called Atlantic Center is a bitmap, and we'll go through vectorizing with that. On-screen digitizing, the second option, again, manually drawing arcs and lines on top of the artwork. And here's an example where I've got these letters, and you can see that we have this menu. We call it a pop-up menu. And when you're in on-screen digitize mode, this is the menu that you use. You can either again use this menu or use shortcut keys, right? So C N for new, W for line, T for tangent arc, right? So you can use shortcut keys as you go around. Basically, you just position the mouse where you want and either click for the menu and select it, or use the shortcut key and you go around. And so you can see the, that it is, or can be, a little bit time consuming, but it's very precise. You can see that, very clean corners. I mentioned here you can use guidelines. So I'd put a guideline at the top and bottom to make sure that I'm consistent across the letter set, assuming that my bitmap is straight. So there are some additional things you can do here to speed it up a little bit. So slow but precise. If your artwork, if you're doing more than just an estimate for a job. Like if that job is going through the production, you're going to route, faces and backs and things. You need this to be as accurate as possible. And in that case, I would just on-screen digitize it from the get-go, right? I would do that from the very beginning, knowing that this is artwork that's going to flow all the way through to production. Okay, that's the second one. Now the third one, freehand draw tool, and here's an image of a channel letter set in this little cabinet. It's not quite clean enough to automatically vectorize, right? So you can see the return a little bit. You got a little shadow, kind of some dark areas. So I don't think that automatically vectorizing to get a clean outline here would probably work very well. But I can take this, and using the freehand draw tool, I can just go around and I can just digitize in my center line, and I can just draw that center line, in some cases straight lines, other cases curves. And this bakery, this is a different file, but same concept. So I've freehand drew that center path and then populated to that path, right? So when you use this tool or on-screen digitize to draw a center path, you can then populate and put modules directly on that path. And that's what we did here. That's what I'll show you. So I say this is good for smooth artwork, rounded corners. It's not as precise. I mean, you can make corners with straight lines, and you hold control to do that. So you can be pretty precise with this. Drawing the center path on the curves is more challenging, and you'll see me try to struggle with this to try to get a good curve in the center. But again, it converts that path to Bezier curves, and then you can edit the Bezier curves and make sure that it's really smooth. But really, at the end of the day, on a layout, it doesn't have to be perfect. You want it in the center of the letter. You don't have to. It doesn't have to be absolutely precise. And again, you can then convert that directly to an open path. So I think the cleaners file is the one that I'll do, and we'll go through that process. Okay, so those are the three main options, and there's just a couple other tidbits that I'd like to mention before I get into showing you these things, and that's the idea of matching the font or matching the logo. Okay, so if you have a retrofit, if you have something like what we're looking at here with this Harley Davidson, and you say, gee, that sure looks like Helvetica Bold Condensed, which is the font that I used here to match. If I can find that font and type that font and adjust the stroke if I need to, adjust the spacing, maybe it needs to be heightened or extended or condensed, or the individual letter kerning needs to be adjusted a little bit. We have an excellent text tool that will do all those things. So on something like this, I would much rather find this font than with any of our tools to have to go through and recreate all of this artwork. So again, notwithstanding any of the other tools and anything that I've discussed so far, if you have a channel letter set and you think you can match the font, that's going to be faster, and pretty much in every case, if you think you can get that font, and if it's you can get a clean match. So we have LED Wizard fonts, we have some Sign Wizard fonts in here. We have, of course, as many TrueType fonts as you can get onto your system. There's this website, What the Font, and it's a great tool for matching fonts. I like to fancy myself as pretty good with fonts and font names and matching fonts, but this site is pretty amazing because there's seems like millions of fonts out there. So if you can match the font, you can then download that TrueType font onto your system, use it in our text tool, and off you go. Okay, so that's another option. And then finally, matching the logo. You're probably all familiar with this site called Brands of the World. It has a large catalog of corporate logos. And you have to be careful because you're not supposed to use those for commercial purposes. But nonetheless, there it is with clean vector versions of a lot of logos. So do what you will with that. It's a great resource. Okay, so yeah, I forgot about these slides. So you know, we've all seen, if you've been around for a while, some pretty terrible artwork and a wide range of files that are trying to be passed off as artwork, if you will. Sometimes you just need to go back to the client and say, I can't give you an accurate layout from what you're giving me, right? I need, in this case, give me a photograph or something. And I think that if what you're given, the point of LED Wizard is to create an estimate, to create an accurate estimate, and to make a layout. But if you're just sort of making it up, then it's hard to provide a layout back and say, yeah, this is accurate. So feel free to go back to the client. Here's a couple additional ones, and these are these are not hopeless. I mean, these can be maybe just with better photography or doing it in the daytime or what have you. The center one is taken with the spike device, which if used properly gives you a good result. Now this was a vertical shot on a horizontal. I think you could have gotten closer. You could have filled the screen more, measured this more accurately. Used correctly, the spike device works. Here's one with some flare and looking up, and again, a vertical shot, what could be a horizontal to fill the screen a little bit more. You've got these letters that are all different fonts, just to make it more difficult. So this is a freehand draw. I would just freehand draw over this. Anyway, so again, I think that we've all seen a pretty big range of artwork, but a little bit of reworking some of that artwork can help us to get better results. So final thoughts before I go into the software here. I think the software has tools to create vector art from any bitmap, really. You just have to interpret it, utilize the tools. Again, go back to your customer and ask for better art if you think that you're not able to make a good estimate from what you're given. And as I mentioned before, there's a big difference between an estimate and a production file when you're starting from a photograph or you're starting from a poor bitmap, because LED Wizard 8 is all about accuracy. It's all about precision, right? If your input is not accurate or precise, then it can be difficult. So, for example, here maybe if a bitmap comes in that's poor quality, you use freehand draw, you create a layout, you provide it back. If that turns into a job, you might come back and say, we really need better artwork. We need something that has precise measurements. We gave you an estimate. We need to go to the next level. So that's I think when you talk about producing and you're bending returns and things like that, we need a little bit more precision. Lauren, I'll pause a sec to see if there's any questions.
No questions right now.
Okay, terrific. So let's start here in the software, and I'm going to import. And I've got some files here. A couple of these you recognize from the slides, and we're going to start here with this Atlantic Center. And one thing that you'll know is if you try to import crop on a bitmap, then you get this message, and that's a giveaway right at the beginning that it's not a vector file. Import crop does not work on a bitmap. You have to import the whole bitmap. And also, uncheck skip bitmaps, or else you might not get anything when you import. So I often have skip bitmaps checked on vector artwork, title block files and things like that. But in this case, I want that to be off. And remember too that most bitmaps are very small. Okay, so this is, even though this has 6,000 pixels, wide, which is great, at 300 dpi. It's physically, if you look at the ruler, right, this is only it's 24 inches wide. Okay, so again, if we take a bitmap and we scale it, look at my DPI number is the number that's actually changing, but my pixel dimensions stay the same. So I'm scaling it up, but I'm not reinterpreting any. I'm not creating or destroying any pixels. I'm just adjusting the size. Okay, and in terms of vectorizing, what I'm doing here, that actually doesn't really matter because it's based on pixels, not physical size. So so the second thing is of course the image menu comes out, or the image property bar comes up here. So in addition to the pixels and some of the things I mentioned, you know, you can adjust transparency of this, and we'll do that as part of the vectorizing process to look at the result. So one of the first things that I want to do with this is I want to use our crop tool because I want to get the dimensions out. I don't want to try to vectorize the dimensions. Okay, so this is the crop tool. You can also get it from the image menu, crop. Okay, and what this essentially does is gives me this bounding box, and I'm just dragging in from the edges. Okay, and I'm just going to crop out by pressing return after I've drawn the crop box, and that's going to get rid. There's a couple little stragglers here, but we won't worry about that. That'll get rid of those dimensions. Okay. Now, of course, you can pre-process your files in Photoshop, right? You can resample or scale a bitmap. You can adjust colors and color density and things like that. We don't have a lot of tools in LED Wizard to do that, but if you're good with Photoshop, you know, that might make sense. So I'll go to the image menu, vectorize tool, and the property bar comes up here. And one of the first things that you want to do is select the colors. Okay, so you see that my cursor is this little eyedropper, and I click on the color. Now, if this was multicolored, I would click on all the colors that I wanted to include. Okay, and it would look for those colors when it vectorizes. So that color, this dark gray, is added here. In terms of the options here, you know, I always suggest that you click on smooth, transparent, and we're not going to worry about all these. Transparency is, you know, the bitmap after I do the vectorizing, again, so that we can compare. That's just a percentage. Corners, I like to have checked. You know, especially on this artwork, I want to make sure that I'm finding corners, and that's really one of the hardest things about vectorizing is to know what's a corner and what's not, but that'll help. You can Bezier vectorize if you're comfortable with editing Beziers, and I'll talk about that here in a minute as well. I'll do this time as arcs and lines, but if you're comfortable editing Beziers, because maybe you do it in Illustrator or Corel or something, then you can do that. And then we have these settings. You know, this file would be medium or large. We have fine and extra fine lines and curves. And if you're really adventurous, you can go into settings and play with all these different all these different variables with these little sliders and everything. And I don't recommend doing this necessarily. Again, if you want to get into this and really fine tune, then you certainly can. Okay, so I'm going to use medium setting, and with corners and smooth checked, and it's done now. And you can see now that I've got two you know, two objects here. One is my bitmap, which is this original, which is grayed out a little bit, or has some transparency to it. And then I've got my vector version. Okay, and if you're ever not sure what you're looking at here, turn the colors on and off. And when you toggle colors off, your bitmap just shows up as a box. Okay, so I will turn the colors off because I want to just look at the actual results here. So, you can see, pretty good, right? Pretty clean corners, not perfect. Some little jiggities right here that we can just delete. You can draw a box around points to delete them. Having these little, I mean, there's points here, but that's still pretty straight. So I think a decent job, which you would expect, right? That was a pretty good, pretty clean file. Remember Alt smoothing from last time. I click on this point, hold Alt, click on this point, makes that into a single line. Always want to highlight that as a feature because it's so useful, right? So I'm just holding Alt and I'm clicking around. If this artwork is going to become something that goes out to your channel letter bender, you're thinking about, how do I cleanly distribute these points? Okay, I'm holding Alt and I'm just clicking around this letter. Okay, so do I need to do that in order to create a population for this letter? No, definitely not. Would I want to do that if I was routing and bending returns for this letter? Absolutely, I would. Okay, so so that's vectorizing. Again, good clean file. Now that I have this vectorized, I can scale this. I can, this is only 4 inches, so this can get scaled up to, full channel letter size. Okay, so that's vectorizing. Again, good clean file, good clean artwork, and good results. All right, so let's look at this 3M logo, and this is another case where I could vectorize this, right? This is another good clean file, but I want to instead show what the on-screen digitizing tools are about. All right, and this is a good file because it has some lines, it has some arcs, so the first thing, and again, I scaled this up. Again, it's really arbitrary in this process what the size is, because once I have the vector version, I can scale it 858 pixels by 1600 pixels. Okay, and so I'll go ahead and first I'll bring in horizontal guidelines. And really, I just want to make sure that this plane is consistent, and same thing down here. And I want to make sure that my baseline is consistent. So on-screen digitizing will snap to that guideline and make it easy to make sure that that I'm on that guideline. All right. So this is the tool we use for on-screen digitizing. It's the third tool down. And I'm going to zoom in. And when I first click, it brings up this menu. Okay, and I say start. That's my start point. Okay. I move over to this point and I click and I say line. Okay. I go down here again, it's all lines for a while. Now you'll notice that the shortcut key for line is W. Okay, so I'm going to switch now to shortcuts. I position the mouse where I want it and I press W. Okay, it snaps to that guideline. W. W. Okay, and I know that, let me bring another guideline, make sure that these guys are lined up. Okay, W. So, pretty, whoops, what did I do? Went to the wrong spot. Do and undo. Get out of that. Okay. So, accurate shortcut keys, snapping here, W's, pretty clean, right? All the way to this point here. All right. Now, I can edit this, right? I can zoom in and I can make a little edit, make sure that I don't get off that baseline. So, zooming in, if you want to fine tune, you can still edit in the on-screen digitize mode if you're careful and you click on a point, so it doesn't think that you're trying to make a new point. All right, so I'm going to click back on this point, and now when I click here, I'm going to do arc. Okay, and you can actually on-screen digitize with Bezier curves. I don't really do it that much. I sort of prefer to do it with arcs. The freehand draw tool uses Bezier curves. So essentially, when you use arcs, the first arc you say arc, but after that, if it's smooth, you really want to use tangent arc. Okay, so tangent arc will make sure that the start point is tangent to the previous arc. And as you do this, if you go too far and the arc starts to deviate, then that's not really an arc anymore, right? That you'd have to put an intermediate point, and here it gets a little bit steeper. So you have to sort of see in arcs, if you will, and if you do that and it doesn't quite line up, again, then you can go back in and you can edit this. You can edit the position of the arc. You can sort of fine tune, right? I don't have a tangent point here. And remember that a black square means it is non-tangent, but the plus sign means that it's tangent. So I'm only tangent when I come in off here. So I might not have the best position, right? But I can slide this along the artwork until, if I stay on that edge, and wait until it's tangent. Okay, and remember to click back on here to establish this as the previous point. And now we're going to say line, and okay, and this is the process. So this is why we say, gee, it's a little bit more tedious. It's not something that goes very quickly. It is something that is very accurate. Okay, if you don't want to worry about tangency, you can just say arc, and it won't force the tangency. And sometimes you can do that, and you can go back and edit. When you do a normal arc, when you click, you're actually clicking on what amounts to the center point of that arc. Okay, so I think that pretty much illustrates. I don't have to finish the whole letter, but that's the task. That's on-screen digitizing. It's precise. It can be a little slow and tedious depending on the artwork. If you were making a sign for 3M and this is all the artwork that you had, it's worth investing some time to make sure that it's accurate and precise. Okay, so that's on-screen digitizing. All right, let's now look at freehand draw, and I'm gonna do the cleaner's image. Again, let's scale this up. So this is a case where it's a retrofit, it's a photograph, and actually this is a pretty clean photograph, right? As photographs go, signage, this is decent actually. So, but it's not so good, not clean enough where I'd be able to automatically vectorize. I don't think that would give good results. Now you saw me scale this up. I can use our measure tool. I'm at 23 inches on the E. Just scale it up a little bit. Let's call that 24 inches. I could use guidelines and be more precise if if this was a real job. Okay. Now, one of the things that when you use the freehand draw tool that you have to remember to do is to click off of the image so that the path you're creating is separate from the image. You want it to be a different object because we're going to populate it and we might want to scale it. Okay, so I'm clicking off, but I can still zoom in. Okay, tools menu, freehand drawing tool. Okay, and in this case, I'm drawing a center path. Let's see how clean I can do the path. See how it converts. It is converted only to 3 Bezier curves, okay, when I drew it. And I can do it letter by letter. I can wait until I draw all the letters, but basically I can go in here and edit this Bezier curve, make sure that I'm more or less in the center of the stroke. Again, if you haven't worked with Bezier curves before, it's a powerful way to describe a shape. It has 2 endpoints and it has these 2 control bars. Different programs edit Bezier curves in different ways, but I've essentially created shape here with only 3 points. These control points can swing and they have a length to them, and you can kind of see how that works. So definitely takes a little bit of getting used to. I will go ahead and I'll keep that selected, and I'll continue with the next letter. Now in this case, I want to hold the control key, and when I do that, it draws a straight line. And to continue that line and to make sure that it's connected, you saw that there was a little plus. Let me show that again. So there's my line. I'm holding control. When I move the mouse above here, it shows a plus sign. That means if I continue to draw from that point, that it will be connected. Okay, and that ends up being one path, and this is a separate path. Okay, so whoops. In that case, I started with trying to connect it on the other one. So there's a path, and I'm going to draw this as a separate path. Okay, so I'm starting the path, and then I'm holding the control key. And again, on a sharp corner, I wouldn't necessarily try to connect that. It would, to some extent depend on the size, whether that would that run of LEDs would actually connect. I could also copy the E from the other letter instead of redrawing it if I wanted to do that. And then I can draw a straight line and then release the control key, in which case it lets me then draw the arc. So that's what I did in that case. And finally on the S. So this is actually a little bit faster. Certainly, I think it's probably faster than on-screen digitizing. Certainly, if there are a lot of arcs. If there's a lot of straights, then on-screen digitizing can also be pretty fast. Okay, so once I have those in here, I can go back in and I can vector edit this, and this looks like that this is not perfectly square. I can also, as I go back and edit that path, again, I can reduce the transparency of the image behind here so that I can better see, and that's something that I like to do. So when I go back in here now, it's a little bit, all things equal, it's a little bit easier to see what I'm doing. All right, so that's the basic procedure, and once I have that path, to finish up on this one, when I go into PowerFlow, I can now populate directly to this path. Okay, I have not created an outline of these letters. I could have, but I've only created the path for the LEDs. So this is important if you're using a title block template that has area and perimeter, for example, which I always recommend for estimating materials. But on this job, if I were to do this job, I wouldn't get an accurate perimeter or area because I don't have my letter outlines, right? So you can make the layout of the letters, but you don't have complete information. But I did this all as one object. I could have done letter by letter, but I did it all as one object. So I'm just going to select. I've got Quick Mod 2, and I'll just populate this. I did populate instead of populate all because it was all one object. Okay, so there's my layout, and again, if this was in our prior version of LED Wizard 7, we would have had to have created a vector outline in order to generate a path that would go inside. Now with LED Wizard 8, we just draw that path. It's an open loop. We populate to that open loop, and and this is a good way to do it. On the cabinet, I would use a shape tool, right? So in the same way that you can match a font and this sort of thing, we can draw a shape, and I can match the that was pretty good. Match the size here. Our control points, just try to stay on the white here. Our control points work with shapes as well. So for example, if I hold Shift, this is how I can kind of bring that shape down a little bit. Okay, And that's the same if you have a letter set and you do shift, that would change the height. If I needed to then go in and do a little further sort of vector editing, then then I can do that, right? If I wanted to convert these into Bezier curves, Bezier curves actually might be a great way to make sure this matches up real well. In the vector editing tool, if I go to the menu and I say, to Bezier, then I can slightly adjust. And remember, editing a Bezier curve doesn't change the tangency at the endpoints. It makes sure that that tangency stays the same. Okay. So again, I don't know that this level of perfection would be needed to do such a cabinet, but if it is, then these are some of the tools that I would use. Okay, so I would just lay that out with whatever product I want. So font matching, shape matching. Certainly, if you can draw a shape instead of having to trace this, then all the better. All right, so that is freehand drawing. And freehand drawing, you don't even need a bitmap to freehand draw. You can freehand draw, straight on the screen without any image or anything like that. And it's a good way to just draw a path or draw a shape. So that's, those are the three options, along with the examples. And if you look at some of these other files, you can see, this one has a perspective keystoning problem, right? As well as a nest, a nest in the E. So, this might be something that, you have to sort of measure and adjust and make sure that it's all clean. If you're ever taking pictures of signs like this, you want to fill the screen as much as possible. You want to be as straight on as you can. If you stand up on a step ladder, you can get a cleaner shot. So I know that you don't always have that luxury, or you end up at the place at night or something like that. But some of these are pretty difficult. Would be pretty difficult to get something clean. In the last couple of minutes, I did want to talk about this font matching. This was that example that I used before. I wouldn't want to use any of the tools that I described to have to recreate this letter. But I mentioned that I knew that this was Arial bold condensed. It's Arial narrow bold. I guess that. No, I think it was Helvetica. Well, this will probably be close enough. So I can set the letter height to the best match. Let's see where I am here. Again, I just scaled this up right. Let's say 10 inches. Yeah, I type that in, and it's just sure that I'm not sure what happened to my text. Let's try that again. There it is. Thunder Tower. And so again, using our text tool, using our control points and this sort of thing, I'd be able to some extent match this. I don't know. It's not quite as bold as this font, but among the changes that I can make here is, I can adjust letter kerning to best match up. Again, extend or condense with the control point on the right. The lower right control point is kerning. So maybe, some combination of extend, condense, and kerning would get this to match, right? So, I would rather do this than the other option, right? Shift, as I mentioned on the shape, shift will go up and down. So, you can get this to be quite close, okay? And even if you don't have the stroke quite right, let's say that I think this is a good match, but it's not a perfect match, but I want the stroke to be a little bit thicker, then of course we have an outline function, okay? Our outline is, normally we do it as a percentage of the height, which is this value here, or by a numeric value, okay? So I can use my mouse wheel, and as I roll the mouse wheel in here, you can see the stroke changing. So if I just do, say, 2%, okay, that's my new thicker stroke. So, I would argue that, again, on a clean channel letter set like this, that using our text tool, having a good library of fonts, certainly if I did a layout from this, it's going to be quite accurate to the, is it perfect? Probably not. But from a photograph, I think that's really as good as you're going to get. Okay, so that's most of what I wanted to cover, and let me just go back here and see if there was anything else. If there's any questions, Lauren, at this point, we have a couple of minutes left.
No questions.
Okay, so again, in summary, 3 sets of tools to use for bitmaps, and this very much goes along with the other webinar about the data import tool and vector cleanup and this sort of thing. This is kind of the again matches up with that. It was really too much to cover in just one webinar, but really, I hope that you have some confidence now that whatever comes in, that one way or the other, that it can be handled, whether it's using the vector tools or using the the bitmap tools that we've outlined here. And again, I've seen a lot of files and a lot of crazy things, and one way or the other, through the use of the tools or multiple tools as we've gone through, we're able to create a good estimate. So again, this for now is the last of the webinar series, and I hope to continue at some point with some more. If you have any feedback for us, or if there's a topic that you would like to see, go ahead and let us know. And I know there'll be a follow-up email coming out from Lauren, and that'll have links to the other webinars. Aside from that, if you just need help with the software in any way or something that wasn't covered, here's my contact information. You can reach out to me directly. You can reach out to folks, in our San Angelo office at Principal. But I think for now, that's going to be a wrap. Thanks, everyone. If there aren't any questions, then good luck with the software, and good luck with getting your shops back open. And we'll talk to you soon. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, y'all. Bye-bye.